welcome to Crime in Court. This is the Delphi transcript read through. We are reading through Indiana versus Richard Allen in the homicides of Libby German and Abby Williams. And today we are on the state's case, part 5. We have on call today is Jake Johns. Sorry, there's Jake Johns and a Patrick Brown who is they both are family friends or acquaintances of the Patties. So just keep that in mind as we go through their testimony. That's what I gathered from what they said on the stand as to how they're related to this case. They don't necessarily say that first thing to begin with, is that like, hey, we're friends with Becky and Mike Patty, but no, I think they just kind of say, "Yeah, I know him." So I don't know what the relationship is. They could just be acquaintances, but they do know the Patty family. I really do think that the Patty family is well known throughout the Delphi community. All right, so let us get started. And starting off with Jake Johns, this is where we left off last. We had some law enforcement, and now we got some family friends and some people, I believe, one or maybe both of them helped on the search. All right, so Stacy Diener for the state is doing the questioning for Jake Johns. She says, "Good morning, Mr. Johns." "Good morning." I'm gonna, she's probably saying, "I'm gonna ask you to speak up. The sound is in this room is not the best. That is for the court reporter, so you can speak loudly into it." The mic, I'm assuming she's talking about. She can pick it up easily. "We want the jury to hear what you have to say, okay?" Witness says, "Okay." "All right. So tell the jury your name." "Jake Johns." "And Jake?" "Yeah. And Johns." And she spells those. Correct. "Okay. And are you the Delphi lifelong resident?" "Lifelong," he says. "Okay. Do you know the family of Liberty German?" "Yes." Did you know them in 2017?" "Yes." "And what was your association with that family?" "My wife had actually worked with Becky Patty." And so when Becky Patty testified that she had an employee by the name of Jennifer Johns, "Is that your wife?" "Correct." "And what about the family of Abby Williams?" "I did not know her." "Okay. On the 13th of February 2017, did you learn that Abby Williams and Libby German were missing?" "Yes." "And how did you learn that?" "My wife had come home and told me that they had been missing." "And did you or your wife do anything that day to assist in looking for the girls?" "No." Were you so they did this gentleman did not look for the girls. I think it's the other witness that did. He says no. "Were you employed in the Delphi area?" "Yes." "And where did you work?" "Pearson's of Delphi." And she asks him to spell it, and he does. "And what do you do at Pearson's?" "That's a propane company." "And what would your particular job be with Pearson's?" Just deliver propane to houses." "Okay, so you would drive around the Delphi area?" "Yes, to deliver." "Yes. On February 14th of 2017, did you become involved in helping search?" "Yes." So he didn't search on the 13th, he searched on the 14th, the next day, the day that the girls were found. "And can you tell us how that came about?" "Actually, me and Shane Haygood went to work, clocked in, and the boss came in and asks us if we'd be willing to go search, and we said, yeah, absolutely." "So your employer is a local business in Delphi. Did we not establish that already?" He says, "Yes." "And they offered for their employees to go help on the clock, help search." "Correct." "And so you and Shane Haygood decided to do that?" "Yes." "And did you take the company vehicle to go to the area?" "No, we took his personal vehicle." Now, being a local community member, were you aware that there was a meeting at the city building or the fire station that morning to organize the search? Yes. So you were involved in that meeting? No. Well, what time did you clock in that morning? You may have already said it, but 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock. Okay. So, from your perspective, what was your intent with regard to the search if you were not going to the fire station meeting? We just figured they'd probably already started and had their groups together and just didn't want to cause any more commotion. Okay. At that point, did you have a reference point as to what you were what area you were going to look for? The area was Highbridge, and we did have a description of clothing to look for. So, what kind of clothing were you looking for? A tie-dyed shirt was the main thing that we were looking for, which would be blue, yellow, orange, pink colors. Okay. Do you recall where you got that information from? I believe my wife had told them or had told me that the clothing that they were wearing that day. Okay. So Mr. Haygood drives. Mm-hmm. And where do you park? We park at Riley Park. Okay. No one has told the jury about Riley Park, so I'm going to have you assist us. Okay. Will this map go back far enough to show Mr. Mullen says I don't think we show Riley Park. I don't know if that's like their AB guy or who Mr. Mullen is. Maybe he's on the prosecution team as a legal assistant or something. Okay. Maybe he's a clerk or something. I have no idea. Mr. Mullen, whoever that is. It's not Stephen Mullen, the uh law enforcement officer who was the last witness. It's not clear. Anyways, next question. Yeah, the poster. Oh, that's perfect. Okay, Mr. Johns, would you mind coming down? Sure, if I may. Can everyone see this okay? Not really. Okay, okay. Mr. Johns, you said Riley Park, and we understand Riley Park is not on this map. All right. Would you agree that this is the Hoosier Heartland? Yes. Okay. And do you know what this is? That's the new bridge that they put us in. That's the new bridge the new bridge they put in. I can't read. That's the new bridge they put in. Okay, Freedom Bridge? Freedom Bridge. Yes. When did they put in Freedom Bridge? Okay, okay. So with regard to the water of Deer Creek, do you recognize Deer Creek? Yeah. The court reporter asks if he could speak up. The court says, "You need to speak up, sir." And he says yes. The court says, "Thank you." Okay, and so in relationship to do you know where the High Bridge is? You follow Deer Creek? Yeah, should be right here. And he indicates on the map. Okay, where does it cross the water? Right here. Okay, thank you. All right, now where in relationship to the High Bridge did you start searching? It was right downtown where the little softball field's at. So is it off the map? It was 4 hours. It took us 4 hours to get there. What? That's not the question. Okay, from where we started. So is it off the map this direction? Yes. To your left? Yes. Okay, so back here in town somewhere? Yeah. And as you walked, what were you following? What path? We were just following the riverbed all the way to the High Bridge. And it took you 4 hours? 4 hours. Okay, have a seat up there. So the two of you start in Riley Park. Yes. And you're working your way towards the High Bridge? Yes. And how were you spacing yourself? I'd say we were probably 10 feet apart. Just he was looking towards the water and I was looking up bank a little bit. Okay. Just try to cover more area, he says. So, as you come towards, say, Hoosier Heartland, are you in an area that is on this map, the top side of the water or the bottom side? We're still on the bottom. Okay. And do you stay on the bottom side for your entire walk? The entire walk, yes. Okay. You said 4 hours. I wish they would have said like south or east, west, whatever direction that was, not just bottom of the map. Okay, so you said 4 hours to get to High Bridge. We started at 8:30 and probably got to the High Bridge around noon. Okay. And when you get to the High Bridge, do you continue on underneath the High Bridge? We went under the High Bridge, and that's the moment when we found some clothing in the water. Okay. So, you're walking along, and what do you see in the water? We see the shirt that was tie-dyed. Okay, can you tell us the shirt? Hung up on some roots. Oh, I'm sorry. It was hung up on some roots that was in the water. Okay. As you're looking across the water and you see this, can you tell that that's a shirt? Yes. And what is it that makes you think that it's a tie-dyed shirt? Well, the colors, obviously. In February, yellow, pink, blue, orange really stood out. Okay, and you're with Shane Haygood. Correct. Was there anyone else with you? No. And where were you walking the riverbed? Is there anyone else in your group? No, just me and him. And I say riverbed, but you're actually in. No. The water? Never in the water. Okay. When you get to the point where you see clothing, what do you do? We come back up to up to the 625, which is a private drive. Okay. And there was a local fireman out there walking around. And did you speak to the fireman? Yes. And what did you talk to him about? We told him that we thought we'd found some clothing that they could notify other people or the police. And how did you know he was a fireman? He had his coat on that said Camden and Erickson with his name Erickson. Erskine. Something with an E? Yes. Okay, so you think this fireman might be able to help? Correct. Do you consider crossing the river? I think Shane tried going across halfway, but then it was like really deep. Like we only had short boots on, muck boots. Okay, so you stay in the south side. Yeah, the bottom side. Yeah. And what does the fireman do? There, she said the south side finally. Okay. And what does the fireman do? Well, he tried contacting people. I don't know if it was the fire department or the police department and never got any signals. So he decided to walk across the bridge to the other side to check out for himself. Okay. And did you watch him do that? Yes, the whole time. And did you watch him approach the clothing? Yes. And could you speak to him from where you were? Yeah. Were you still down by the water when you spoke with him? No, we were up on the driveway. Okay. Private driveway. I'm going to have you come down one more time now and let me know where you were on the private drive. Yeah, so we were kind of right here on this private driveway right here. I'm going to put my pen about right here. About right here. Okay, so you'd say right here, right in there. How many times does he need to say right here? Okay, if you can step over here so people that you might be blocking can see. Is my pen on the part that you were watching from? Correct. Okay, and you see him go up to the clothing? Yes. And is it only you and Mr. Haygood over here at this point? At that point, yes. Okay, go ahead and have a seat. Are you at some point communicating to the fireman on the other side of the water? Not really. Okay, and did he at some point communicate to you that he had located the tie-dyed shirt? Yes. And how did he do that? He said, "We have found the shirt." Then he also said, "We have found some black Nike shoes." Okay, and you're looking in the direction of where he sees the clothing, correct? Right. And it's directly across from where you're standing. Yeah. So do you see anyone in this area searching? Nobody. And I'm pointing to the area between Deer Creek directly up to the cemetery. Nobody was over there. Okay. Are you familiar with this area on the upper side or the north side of the water? Not really. Well, what did you have to do from the water level to reach this Weber access road? There's probably a 10 or 15-foot hill that goes up to it. Okay. Did you ever go from this Weber Drive to the bridge? Yes. And is there another elevation between the Weber Drive and the bridge? Yes. And what would you estimate that to be? Maybe about the same. Okay. An additional? Yeah. 10 to 15? Yeah. When you're standing up here looking across, could you see people searching in this area? No. Did you see people searching when you were coming around the bend or prior to that? Prior to the bridge, there were yes, there was people searching. Okay, on the other side? So prior to the bridge, there were people searching on the opposite side of the water? Yes. And did you see any of on your side of the water? No. So they were the only ones on the south side of the creek. Did you at some point did your group contact law enforcement to say there's clothing in the water, or did someone else do that and you're unaware? The fireman was, I think, the one that got a hold of them. We contacted somebody that actually lived on that side. Okay. That could maybe come down and check it out. Okay. Did that resolve? About the same time the fireman was coming to the close. This is really confusing because they keep, so if you're following or if you're having trouble following along, look at the screen because it's very back and forth and they keep cutting each other off here. All right. So he says something about the fireman coming to the close. Okay. So you were aware that someone was being contacted to come from the other side. Yes. And what do you mean by that? From the other side? Somebody that lived over there that Shane Haygood saw to come down and check it out. Okay. So did you learn that someone was coming from the other side at some point? Yes. And who did you believe was coming from the other side? Pat Brown, who is our next witness. So keep that in mind. And is that a person known to you from the community? Just the community, yes. Okay, not personally. No. As you're standing up here and you're watching the firemen approach the clothing, do you hear or see anyone on the other side? Well, before that, and then she cuts him off, other than the firemen, I'm sorry, in the water. The witness says, before this, I mean, what's going on right now? Brad German, his wife Kelsey, and Michael Bennett actually showed up over there at the time that the fireman was going over there and the time that Pat Brown was coming down the hill. Hold up. Who is Brad German's wife? Was he married? As far as we know, she wasn't living at the house. It was only the Patties and uh, Germans in that house. So who's the wife? I just have a question about that. Um, Kelsey is obviously the sister. Derek is the father of Libby, but who's Brad German now? I'm confused. Okay. And I don't know who Michael Bennett is either. So hopefully get some clarification on that. So Derek German is the father of Kelsey and Libby. He was living at home with his parents, or his mother and stepfather, who is Becky and Mike Patty. And then Derek German's brother, Cody Patty, also lived at home with the Codys. So that's all the people that we know that live in that house. So I don't know who Brad German and his wife are or who Michael Bennett are. So hopefully we get some clarification on those individuals. All right. So next question is okay, and that's some of the family of Libby German. Yes, a grandparent. Okay, so this must be Derek German's father, right? And his wife. Okay, so that would be Derek German's dad. All right. Okay. Did you know these people personally prior to this day? Yes. Okay. And what was your familiarity with this whole area? Had you been to the High Bridge Trail? Never. Had you heard about the Monon High Bridge? I had not. You've worked and I don't know if he lives there, but he's worked there for quite some time and has never heard of the Monon High Bridge, but he's local. So that's kind of strange to me because I thought it was like a local hangout. So you lived here your whole life and didn't know about the High Bridge? No. Okay. What about this cemetery? Just drove by it. Of course, we do a lot of route running. So I've been on about every road in Carroll County. So then how do you not know about these areas here? Okay, but as far as the area from the cemetery to the water, were you familiar with that? Never. Okay. So you said you believed Pat Brown was coming from the other side. Correct. Did you ever see or hear Pat Brown? Did not physically see him, but we heard him coming. I think Shane was still on the phone with him, and he said, "We found the bodies." Did he sound alarmed? Absolutely. Okay, and so even when Pat Brown says the words, "We have found the bodies," are you looking from this elevated area over towards the clothing? Yes, still. And could you see Pat Brown? No. And could you see the bodies of Abby and Libby? Could not. From that side? Could not. Where did you go then from that private drive when you left the area? We went out Weber's driveway on the other, out towards the front. So along this drive, coming back to the west, actually up by the house. So you went out that, yes, direction, yes. Okay, so this actually connects all the way around. Yeah, all right. There was a photograph taken of the clothing from your side of the water, is that correct? Correct. And although you did not take it, you're familiar with it? Correct. May I approach the witness, Judge? You may. Mr. Johns, I'm going to show you what's marked as State's Exhibit 7. It has the sticker at the bottom. Do you recognize that photo? Correct. Does it represent what you observed on February 14th, 2017 from the opposite side of the Deer Creek? That is it. Ms. Diener says the state would move to admit and publish exhibit number 7. Court says 8. Mr. Luttrell says, did we already? Ms. Diener says, oh, 8. Court says, any objection? Ms. Auger says, no, Your Honor. The court says, I'll show without objection 8 is admitted and you may publish. And so just to clarify, Mr. Johns, you never crossed the creek into the area where the bodies were. No. No other questions. The court asks Miss Auger if she has anything, and she says, thank you, Your Honor. So now we have some cross examination of this witness. Mr. Johns, you gave a statement, I think, in 2019. Do you recall speaking to Rich Davies? I've given 7, 8 statements to different people. Okay. And you said that you were up on the access road over here, and she indicates on the map. He says, yeah. But you could see some shoe prints? Yeah. Okay. The other guy I was with could see some shoe prints, yes. Did you see the shoe prints? No. I was more up towards the road, closer to the road, and he went down to the water. All right. And was there also a mark of a kind of a slide? Like somebody sliding on some ground or something? From the top of the bridge, yeah, you can see where the ground and rocks had been disturbed, absolutely. And that's on the morning of the 14th. Correct. And did you rely, or I'm sorry, did you relay that information to law enforcement in that day at any time? Yeah. Now the shirt, State's Exhibit 7, the court corrects her and says 8. State's Exhibit 8, I'm sorry, I marked it wrong. State's Exhibit 8, that was pretty easy for you to see. Correct. And this is at about 12 o'clock on February 14th. Between 12 and 12:30, I'd say. And remember, the bodies were found around noon. All right. And you didn't go out to get the shirt, right? No, the water was really deep. Yeah. So no area where the water wasn't deep. I think you could probably go halfway across. This is important because the state suggests that the girls somehow crossed the creek, and the creek was so high that you wouldn't be able to get across it. And the water's flowing pretty well? Not really. No? No. Okay, did you ever go into the water at all? No. Now, you've also said that it was weird that there was only one fireman out there. Is that correct? Correct. And when you were up here on the access road, you couldn't see over here. Is that right? Could not. All right. But you could hear Pat Brown? Yeah. All right. You could hear Jim really, or I'm sorry, you can hear him really well. Yes. Sound traveled pretty easily out there. Yeah. Nothing further. That's a great point. Because if things were happening and Richard Allen was doing the things that the state is saying that he was trying to do and trying to essay them, and then he changed his mind and abducted them and took their lives, you would hear screaming or something, you would hear rustling, you would hear sounds, and there were people out and about in that area. So she's making a great point that it probably didn't happen at the time that they're saying it happened, and if so, there's no proof that it was Richard Allen, but other people were around, which I don't even think that they can get into a whole lot because the geofence data was not allowed in this trial, which is unfortunate because that would pretty much rule out Richard Allen and he would have been home, which is where his wife said he was. So I don't know. It's just really crazy. Okay. So the court says Ms. Diener, and there is a little bit of redirect here and recross. Ms. Diener says, after Pat Brown walked down, or you heard the voice of someone say, "We found bodies," could you see other people come to the area? Could not see them, but we could hear them traveling down the hill. So you could hear them, even though you couldn't see them, you could still hear them just moving in that area. Not even like necessarily saying that we heard voices. We heard them traveling down the hill. So you heard them moving. So any little bits of things. Like in his next question, she says, okay. And he says, like leaves rustling around and walking. So why did nobody hear Richard Allen and the girls at that time when there were other people around at that time and you could hear wrestling and walking? So that wasn't a great point for the state that she tried to make. She says, okay, so even though you could hear people, you could not see them, could not see them, and you were in an elevated position. Right. Ms. Diener says, no other questions. Court throws it back to Miss Auger, and we have some recross. And she says, now, Mr. John or John's? John's, S. He's like a man of really short, like he doesn't say full sentences. He's just like, John's, S. Not John's with an S. He's very matter of fact and to the point. So he seems very credible. I'm not saying that he doesn't. I'm just saying like he's very short with his answers. As I've noticed reading through it. Okay. And she says, I'm sorry. It's all right, he says. You were here, she points on the map. Is that right? About the middle of from there to the house. Okay, so a little farther. Oh, he says, so a little farther. And she says, on the access road? Yeah, yeah. Okay. And do you know where the voice of Pat Brown was coming from? Yeah, it was exactly straight across from us. Oh, that's a great point. This is great for the defense because you could be on either side of the creek and still hear what was going on. Okay. And how do you know that? I don't exactly know that, but I mean, Shane told him where to come, and that's where he came in, right from the graveyard. Ms. Auger says, "Okay, thank you." The court says, "Does anybody from the jury have any questions for Mr. Johns?" There was no indication from the jurors. The court says, "No, all right. Thank you, Mr. Johns. You may step down." The witness says, "Thank you." The court says, "We're going to take our morning break." Mr. McClellan says, "Yes, Judge." Court says, "All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is an appropriate time for us to take our morning recess. While you're outside the courtroom, please keep your minds open. Please don't form any final opinions or conclusions about anything. You may discuss the evidence," which is so bizarre to me, "that you've heard so far, but please only if that is, all 16 of you are present in the jury room at the same time, and then please don't deliberate." Gentlemen, court or the bailiff says, "All rise." The jury exits the room. The court says, "All right, let's resume at 15 minutes. Please, Jody, you can go off the record." And we're back, just like that. And are we ready for the jury to come out? Yes. Okay. Mr. McLeland says yes, Your Honor. Mr. Rosie says yes. Mr. McLeland says, "Sorry, I can't see you, Judge." The court says, "That's okay. And just a reminder, we're going to noon today, so we're not finishing a full day." Mr. McLeland says, "Yes, Judge." The court says, could be a little bit before noon, depending on where we're at with your witnesses." McLeland says, "Yes, Judge." Bailiff says, "All rise." "Thank you. You may be seated." The jury has now filed in. Okay, so the court says, "Thanks, ladies and gentlemen. All right, Mr. McClelland, you may call your next witness." Mr. McClelland says, "Judge, before we call our next witness, during the break, I was able to get a screenshot of the image that we marked up. I've submitted it to your court reporter and had it marked as State's Exhibit 7. I would ask the court's permission at this time to publish that picture to the jury. I've also provided that to the defense." The court says, "You may." Mr. McClelland says, "Thank you, Judge." Court says, "And again, ladies and gentlemen, just keep all of that stuff inside of your folders so that you have those available." Mr. McClelland says, "Thank you, Judge." Ms. Diener says, "Judge, while they're passing the exhibit, the state would call Pat Brown. The witness is sworn in." Now we've got direct examination of Patrick Brown. And she says, "Good morning, Mr. Brown." "Morning." "Okay, that is not going to amplify your voice." "Okay, sorry. No, I apologize. So you'll have to do the amplifying, all right? And I'll remind you if you start to be quiet." "Okay, all right." "Tell the jury your full name." "Patrick Neil Brown." "And do you live in the Delphi area?" "Yes, I do." "Have you always lived in the Delphi area?" "Yes." So it seems like a lot of these people are Delphi locals from the time that they are born until, this case, and trying to, um, not trying to be a part of it, but a lot of these people who have just, lived their whole lives in this town have become part of this case now. "And what do you do for a living?" "I work at Tate and Lyle. They make cornstarch." "Is that a Delphi business?" "Lafayette." "How far is that from your home?" "Probably about 25 minutes or so." So he lives in Delphi and he works in Lafayette. "And are you familiar with the Monon High Bridge Trail area back in 2017? "Yes, yes." "Is your home in the vicinity of others that live in that area?" "Yes, I'm about a mile and a half or 2 miles away." "Okay, I'm going to have you talk a little bit louder. Mile and a half, 2 miles away." "Okay. So the road, the country or the county road that passes alongside the Mears entrance to the trail, is that familiar to you? Yes. And in 2017, were you familiar with Libby German and her family? Yes. In what way? I've known Mike Patty, since high school. And we're referring to Mike Patty? Yes. Do you have children around the same age? Yes. My daughter's the same age as their oldest granddaughter, I do believe. And we're talking about Kelsey? Kelsey, yes. What about Abby Williams? No, I don't know them. Okay, in 2017, were you working at Tate and Lyle? Yes. And what kind of shift do you have there? I work a day shift. I work in the maintenance department. Is that a set schedule? Yes. What are your hours? Monday through Friday, 7 to 3. 7 a.m. to 3 p.m.? Yes. Okay, so do you recall that February 13th of 2017 was a day off of school? Yes. On that particular day, did you work? Yes. Did you at some point become aware that Libby German and a friend of hers were missing? Yes, that evening. Can you tell us about your day and when it was and how it was that you learned that? I went to work that day. I worked all day long. 3 o'clock, I got off work, drove home. On my way home, I stopped at the parts store, got an oil filter for my wife's SUV, went on home, changed the oil in my wife's SUV. We were selling it to a guy she worked with, so me and my daughter, we jumped into it after it was done. We drove to Monticello, dropped it off. Me and my wife drove home. I started to cook supper on the grill, and then shortly after we ate and everything, we were watching TV, and that's when my wife said that Becky had posted on Facebook that the girls were missing. It was very detailed. And so at that time, if she said Becky Patty's granddaughters were missing, you would know who she was talking about. Yes, well, one of them. Okay. And did you then do anything with regard to the information that they were missing? Yes, I called Mike and we're talking about Mike Patty. Yes, and asked him if they had found them or anything because I didn't know how long they had been, that post had been. And I called Mike, and he was at the police station, I do believe. And then I told him I was going to go see if I could help look, so if we could find them, or and see if we could find them. Okay, was it dark at this point? Yes, it was. And so, what did you do in order to assist? I called Tom Mears, a buddy of mine, and I asked him, so I was at the Mears. Oh, well, I guess she's getting to that. Okay, so Tom Mears, a buddy of mine, he called. And I asked him if he wanted to go look for the girls. He was busy at the point, but he was said he would meet me over by the High Bridge. Okay, so Tom Mears, we've heard a lot about the Mears name. Yes. And there's a lot of Mears. Yes. Family members. Yes, there is. Okay, and do they live all in the same vicinity that you live in? Yes, most of them do, yes. Okay, so you made arrangements to meet with Tom Mears? Yes. Okay, where did you go to meet with him? Well, I went over to the cemetery, which I pulled into the cemetery and I parked. I walked around the cemetery. I don't know if you want a map or, well, come on up and we'll show them what you're talking about. So I'm going to stand on the side. Okay. So you can be out of the way of the jury to see the picture. But I've shown you a map of the area. Yes. I'll give you an opportunity to get acclimated. Okay. Okay. So what area would you be coming from if you left home? If I left home, I'd be coming from this area up here. Okay. And coming around through that way. So you'd be coming from the north. Yes. Travel south. Yes. To this perpendicular road on the picture. What is that road? I, do you know? I don't know the road number. It's okay. Do you travel it often? Ms. Diener says, Judge, is it okay if I ask the jury whether they can see it? The court says, there indicate, can you see it? No, I think it's a glare. And I think yesterday, if you had it, Ms. Diener says, see, I tried to put it where the court says, maybe move it a little bit forward. Ms. Diener says, okay, let's try that. The court says, is that better? Ms. Diener says, better. Court says, okay, everybody's giving a thumbs up. There we go. Ms. Diener says, perfect. Everybody in the back row does a thumbs up. Anybody thumbs down? Okay. Ms. Diener says, okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Okay. Ms. Ajay continues. Coming from off the map, okay, and you come down to the perpendicular road. Yes. Okay. Come to this road here. And she indicates. And where'd you go from there? Okay, I come down this road, come over. I stopped here at Ron Logan's house. Okay, why'd you stop at Ron Logan's? Well, I stopped to ask him if he might have seen the girls. Retired. I didn't. So Ron Logan. Ron Logan comes into the chat, FYI. Ron Logan, I've talked about him on my channel. He's very suspicious. He's very possibly number one suspect. And the FBI thought so too. So I don't know whatever happened to that. But so oh, let me restart the question. So why did you stop at Ron Logan's? Well, I stopped to ask him if he might have seen the girls. Retired, I didn't know maybe if he'd seen them walking by or anything like that, so I thought I would ask him if he had seen them. It's very telling. Like, well, he's retired, he's always around. I thought maybe he saw them. So that means there's access that Ron Logan could have had to the girls very easily. Okay. And was there anything unusual about your conversation with Ron Logan? No. Did he indicate he had seen the girls? No. Okay, and then what did you do? So I left there. Did I say Ms. Auger? This is still Ms. Diener. I misspoke earlier. This is Cross. I'm sorry, direct examination state witness. So I left there and I come on down the road. I come to this edge, just turning into the cemetery here. I come in, parked my vehicle right in this area here. Are you in the cemetery? Yes. Okay. Still in the cemetery, yes. And there's a ravine that runs through here, so I come around. I knew there was people on the bridge. I could hear them. I could see lights. So I come around and walk. So this is late at night. He could see lights. He probably was seeing flashlights and things of that nature. So I come around and I walk along this ravine, this ridge, and I worked my way along the ridge to the bridge back here. Then I found they had a vehicle backed up. They were getting a drone out to fly a drone. I talked to people there for a little bit. So that's interesting. I did not know that they were flying a drone at night to try to find the girls. They said they had searched the area here, so talked to them for a little bit, and then I left and come up to the Mears entrance, and they call the Mears entrance, followed the trail through here to the Mears entrance, and then Tom called, and I met him right here on that road. Yes, on that road. Picked up, me and Tom picked up, and then we drove. We took off and drove around and went out to the Heartland. Come back around 218, went around there's an old gravel road, goes back through, and it comes out by Mike and Patty's. Or, I'm sorry, Mike and Becky's. So it comes out around the Patty's. This gravel road comes out around Mike and Becky's. And around. We drove all around the country, I think he means the county, looking to see if they were out walking. Okay, so let's go back to see what you observed here. Yes. What part of this area is familiar to you? What part of it? Yes, this part, he indicates. Okay, so the part to the west of the ravine. Yes, towards the High Bridge Trail. Yes. Okay, and what do you know about this ravine area? Well, it's pretty steep and everything is there, so okay. Would it be difficult to walk directly from the west of the trail and just go straight across? Yes, I think it would be. Okay, and so even when you parked in the cemetery on what would be the west side of the drive, you went around the wooded area? Yeah, around to the north because the ravine comes up through there right around this. Okay, so it's even deep around the side? Yeah, of the cemetery. I wouldn't say it's real deep, but in the dark, you could probably break a leg pretty easy in there. Okay, so you come up around that wooded area that we can see, and you walk along this. Walk along. Field or down in here. I walk along here and worked my way up to the bridge, right along through there, and then here to the bridge. Yes. Okay. Is there an area in here where you could not walk close to the water? Yes, it's really steep right here. It's very steep. So you came from the cemetery towards the high bridge? Yes. Did you ever cross the high bridge? No. And then you went backward to the trail? Yes, that way. Okay. Where? It's dark, correct? It's dark. Do you have a flashlight with you? Yes. And can you see other people with flashlights? Yes. In what vicinity do you see flashlights? I see flashlights over in here and some back in here. And there were a couple back here at the bridge that I had flashlights too. Could you tell? Right in the entrance. Okay. And the people that were there with the drone, did they look like they were law enforcement in some capacity? I could not tell. Okay. Could have been random people. It could have been just someone that was, and then there's an inaudible, which I want to say that I think it was Sleuthy that pointed out, Sleuthy Goosey on Twitter, that pointed out that there were like 400 something, 422 inaudibles in this transcript, which is ridiculous because, like, how do you have that many inaudibles? Like, either this court reporter has hearing issues or she has comprehension issues or something. Like, what's going on that she had that many inaudibles in her transcript? But anywho, let's move on. So you get with Tom, you drive around? Yes, the area. And another inaudible. Did you ever come back to the trail? Yeah. He brought me back to my truck and then he went home. I almost went home. I got home and talked to my wife because I needed a can of Skoal. Is that how you pronounce it? That chewing tobacco. So I drove back to town and got me a can. And then while I was in town, I drove some of the back roads, old 25 all the way out, but I stopped at the fire station at first and talked to the guys at the fire station and asked them what they heard. They hadn't heard anything, so like I said, I drove some of the back roads, old 25 down, and come to 218 and went back home. Was it your thought that the girls may have attempted to walk home? Yeah, well, walk home, walk in town. I was just looking to see. I didn't know where they would walk or, okay. So, because the Patty home is in the same vicinity as yours is off the map? Yes, they're off the map over there. Okay, so you go home that night after you've stopped at the fire station and I talked to to some other people. Yes. And what do you do on the 14th of February? Would that have been a work day for you? Yes, I got up, called off work to help search. I asked the wife, if she heard anything or seen anything on Facebook, and she had not seen anything. So I went ahead and called off work to help with the search if there was one. I drove into town. I'm not sure of the time. It was still dark. Okay. I drove into town, got a cup of coffee, talked to John Randall. He was going to work at the police station. And after I got done talking to him, we talked for a little bit. I drove back home because my daughter was getting ready for school. And then I drove back into town again, and again after she got ready and gone. And I went to the Stone House. I met Tom and his father-in-law at Stone House. Now, just so the blah, 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 excuse me, just so the jury knows, the Stone House is a local restaurant. Yes, is that correct? Yes. Okay, it's a restaurant, and it's in the downtown area. Yes. Did you take your daughter to school or did she transport herself? No, no, she got on the bus. On the bus. Okay. Okay. And so you're at the restaurant? Yes. And what happens from there? Drinking coffee. Then we went across because they was doing the thing over at the firehouse. So we went across to see what was going on over there, and that's when they was I can't read these people's grammar. That's when they was talking about the search and everything, and Mr. Mullins, Officer Mullins, he was seemed to be heading it up, giving us a phone number and everything, and got the searchers ready. So, did you collect the phone number of Steve Mullen when you were at the meeting in case you needed it later? Yes. Prior to that, you would not have had it? No. Did you know that he was the Delphi chief of police? No. So, you get a phone number. What area do you go to search and who goes with you? Me and Tom, we went together. We come out because they said that they was gonna be using helicopters and stuff and fly them over this area here. And what area are you referring to? The trail? This, yeah, the trail area. Okay, all this area here. So we come out and went over this way. And you're pointing to the right side of the map? Yes, east of the cemetery. Yes, yes. We went over that way. There's a couple fields over there and farms along the creek, so we went over there, looked there. There used to be, years ago, there used to be a cave in the side of the, I don't know, hillside or whatever. There used to be a cave in there, so we went to check and see if it maybe had gotten in the cave, and the cave had been collapsed long before that. So there were trees over it, so we moved on and checked a couple other places. And when we got done there, looking where we looked, we went back to Tom's house because he was getting some wood cut up. He was a sawmill, or he has a sawmill. We went back there to his place, messed around a little bit, and then I went home. Got a call from my daughter, and she wasn't feeling well at school, so I went to school and picked her up. What time of the day do you think that was? I'm going to say 10:30, 11 maybe. I'm not sure. So mid-morning? Yes. Okay. So she wasn't, so you take her home? Yes. All right. And then, like I said, I pick her up, took her home, got her home. We sat there for a little bit, ate lunch. I thought it was, I thought at that time they had step across here. Okay, this uh, is where this building here, I think, is where they had set up a command center. And what do you mean by command center? What did you see there? Well, I never got there. Oh, okay. You heard about it? Yes, yes. I heard they had a command center set up there. Okay. I think they put a trailer there or something that they was working out of. So I left my home, was going to the command center to see what was going on, and that's when Tom Mears called me and he said, "Hey, I just got a call from a Shane Haygood and they seen something along the creek." And he said, "If you can go look here." Tom told me to, he was asking me if I could go look. So I told him, yeah, sure. So I come back to the cemetery and I pull in, I park right here in this area. Same as the day before? Yes, right in that area. Yes. And at this point, do you know Shane Haygood? No, no, I don't. And do you know anything about the area where they are? No, all I know is they're across the creek on that side. On the south side? Yes. And so then, how do you communicate with the people on the other side of the water? Well, Tom told me that they had seen something. So I come to the cemetery and I tried to call Shane because he gave me his phone number. I tried to call him. He didn't answer. So I proceeded to come across the way here on the east, right? Okay, yes. They'd be on the east side. There's a gate. And I come through the gate and he called me after I got through the gate. He called me back and said they had seen something. Wait, who is he? Shane Haygood. And is that private property at that point outside the cemetery? Yes, it is. Okay. Yes, it is. Is it marked? I don't know if it is or not. Okay. So I cross over there and Shane calls me back, and he says that they are across the creek and he could see something down in the cemetery along the creek. So I proceeded to walk that way, and that's when I ran into Melissa Marchand, however you say that. There are a lot of names in this. It's like a small town and like everybody knows everybody and there's a lot of names being thrown around and it's going to take a little bit for all of us to get situated with all these names. Um Ms. uh Ms. Diener says okay. So this Marchand, he says, and me and her talk. She was coming from this direction somewhere and we met right here. And we spoke for a little bit, and I told her that Shane had called, said that they had seen something in by the creek, and they also said that there was a fireman walking along the creek, go towards the fireman. So that's the direction we went. At this point, when you're up here, can you see the water? Can you see from here? The water from here. A little bit, but not a lot. Okay. So we proceeded to go down towards the creek, and that's when we came across the girls. And what did you do? I looked, and at first I thought they were mannequins. Okay. Did you say something out loud? Yeah, I said, we found them. And it's okay. I need a minute. So he must be getting emotional. Sure. That's when Melissa, she took off and ran back towards the other way. I turned around and like I said, I yelled out, we had found them, you need to call the police. I got on the phone, I called Mr. Mullins, told him that we had found them. I stood there facing away from them, and then while I was standing there, Ben Mears, so another Mears family member, come from the west side with another fellow, and they come over and they stopped. And the fireman he come from the west and was here. So I was standing there. Three girls come from over here, and they come from over, and they did not get close to the girls, but they stood there for a little bit, and then they went up the cemetery. I walked over to Ben Mears. And, and, go ahead. And at that point in time, we stood there and waited, and that's when police officers came. Okay. I'd like to switch this out for a picture that's closer up so that we can see, so that you can help us with who you saw and where you saw them. Okay. Ms. Diener says, so Judge, for the record, I would indicate that up at this point, Mr. Brown was referencing State's Exhibit to the large map. Mr. Brown, now we have State's Exhibit 3, which is a closer view of the cemetery and Deer Creek area. Would you agree? Yes. Okay, now when you were pointing to the area, you were not very close to the water. I'd like you to be more specific about the location where you saw the girls with respect to Deer Creek. I'm gonna guess right in here, I guess. It's hard to tell. Okay. The court says they can't see. Ms. Diener says, is it a glare? And the court says he's standing in front of it. Ms. Diener says, oh, he says right in this area, I would say. Okay, so you felt like it was farther away. Yes, I mean, yeah, you don't know? Yes. Okay, did you at some point go closer to the fireman that was in the water? Yes, I come to the creek. So firemen or law enforcement, first responders are in the water, these civilians never went into the water, except Sean Haygood did partially. So he says where Ben Mears was with another guy standing with him. So I followed him through, and the guy dressed in the fireman's clothes was over here, and I was standing. Okay, there, standing there with them. And when you were when you were closer to the water, talking to the fireman, did you know that he had come from the water or where? No, I didn't know where he came from. I didn't know if he came from this way or I didn't see him. Okay. And you said you saw Ben Mears? Yes, ma'am. Did you see what area he came from? Yes, he came from this direction. From the west. From the west, yes. Okay, did he come from that direction after you saw the bodies? Yes. And you said that you were with Melissa. Did you know her to be a relative of Libby's family? Yes, that's awful. Uh, I don't know what her relationship is, but so that Melissa Marchand, sorry. She's maybe a cousin, aunt, I don't know. Some relation to Libby. And what direction did she go in? When she left? Yes. She went back up this way and ran back the way we came. So, okay. After she got away from me, I don't know where she went. Did you leave the vicinity of the bodies after you saw them? Yes, I walked over here with Ben Mears. Were you still? I never left the area though. Could you still see the area where the girls' bodies were? I could see where they was at, but I could not see them, no, though. So, if you were along the edge of the water searching, looking towards the cemetery or this vicinity, do you believe you would be able to see the bodies of Libby and Abby? From where I was at? No. How close did you get to the bodies? Roughly 5 feet, right in there. Were you any closer than you and I was standing? Were you any closer than you and I standing here? Probably this distance. Okay, and uh did you see anyone with you get any closer to the bodies? No. Did you have a firearm with you that day? No, I did not. Could you see Shane Haygood that was on the other side of the water giving you directions? No, I did not see anybody on the other side of the water, but I wasn't really paying attention after you saw we found the girls. Yes. Did police arrive before you left? Yes. And what happened when police arrived? Well, we were standing here, I was standing there, Ben, the other guy, and then the guy in the fire department garb, the police officers came down, and that's when they kind of took our information and then they asked us to leave the way that we walked in. So you see law enforcement come from the cemetery area? Yes. And those are the first police officers that you see? Yes. And when you leave the same direction that you came? Yes, yes, ma'am. And what about the other civilians that were with you in the area? They left the direction that they told them to leave the directions that they came also. Okay, so not everyone went with you to the cemetery. No, no. You can have a seat back in the witness chair. Ms. Diener says, I'd pass the witness. The court says, Mr. Baldwin, and we move on to cross-examination of Patrick Brown. Why did that highlight all of those numbers there? I don't know. It was like connected. Okay. So, cross-examination. Hi, Pat. How are you? Good. How are you? Doing good up there. You don't seem nervous. I've got a few questions for you. Okay. You said on your direct examination that up near this is the cemetery? Yes. You said you could hear people from the bridge when you were up here at the cemetery. Yes, that was the day before, or yeah, on the 13th. Yes. So the sound was pretty good from here. Yes, to you. Yes. And you could also see lights, I think is what you said. Yeah, you could see flashlights. All right, from the cemetery down to the bridge. This is excellent points being made because the state's theory is that the girls were already there, but people were already in that area looking with flashlights. So how could, did they miss them? I don't know. But you could also hear things. So if anybody was there or in the area, you would hear or see potentially. All right, so well, maybe not all the way to the bridge, but you could see lights in the woods there, yes. Did you see the clothing? Did you see the clothing in the creek? No, I did not. Okay, you weren't looking for that? No, I wasn't looking for that. All right, I wanted to kind of clear up some stuff. The Ben Mears tried to get an understanding of when and where he was. So Ben Mears, was walking along with another guy along the creek here. Yes. I don't know where he was. I don't know where they were walking. I just know that they came where they came out. So they came out near the creek. Yes, but they were heading this way. Yes. So, and I'm indicating for the record east from the west to the east. Is that correct? Yes. All right. And you can walk along the creek there. There is, yeah, there's a ridge there, but I'm not sure. I haven't been back in that part, so I don't know. Okay. I couldn't tell you how steep it is, or I just walked along the ridge there. I don't know if there's a place along the creek you can walk or not. And how far do you have to travel down from the cemetery to where you can see the creek? I think you testified to that, but I wanted to make sure. Oh, I would maybe say 30, 40 yards, maybe, before you could see the creek. Where the girls were located, could you see the creek from there? Yes. Okay. If you went up, you could see them even beyond that. You could see the creek a little bit, yes. And just so the jury understands, I mean, the steepness it doesn't, you can't really see it, but this is pretty steep right here, yes? Or right? Excuse me. He says yes. Through the, excuse me, got like a frog in my throat. Says yes, through where the ravine is, yes. It's steep. Yeah, but by the time you get down to where the girls are, it's a flatter area. Yes, it gets flatter, yes. Okay. In fact, it's pretty flat. Yes. You wouldn't happen to know how many feet from the creek here to where the girls were. I would not know. No. Difficult. Were you told that there was going to be dogs searching in this area? I had heard that. Yes, at the thing that they was going to have dogs there. The meeting, maybe? I had heard that. Yes. So there was some interest, you think, in searching in this area over here? Yes, I think there was. I, this guy's grammar is throwing me all off. I think they was gonna look there. Yes, I'm trying to read what's on the thing, and then it screws me up because my brain is like that doesn't make sense because it's not grammatically correct. And just so the jury understands, the other fellow that was coming in, the fireman, he was coming along the creek from this direction. That's yes. From what I could see, that's the way he was coming in. Yes. Then there was 3 girls, and they were more up here in the area, is that what you're saying? Well, when I seen them, they come from that area, yes. Okay. But they were able to get down to the area where you were. Yes, I'm not sure which way they took, but they got to me, yes. So you can get from this upper area to this lower area, correct? Oh, yeah, you could. Okay. But it's very steep. There's some steep areas in there that's sure for guys of a certain age, maybe a little bit difficult than others. Yeah, some older guys, yes. Yeah, yeah. So when you called Stephen Mullins, yes. Excuse me. I don't know why they're saying that that's incorrect. He's Officer Stephen Mullins. I don't know why that's incorrect to just say Stephen Mullins, but so when you called Officer Mullins, yes. Where were you on here? Or is it Mullen without the S? Maybe it's Mullen without the S. Officer Mullen. I think that's I think it's without the S. That's what it is. Okay. So where were you on here? I was standing facing away from the girl. So and you had phone service there? Yes, I did. You did. A bunch of police officers had arrived fairly quickly after you had made your call. Is that right? Well, the two showed up and they come and took our information and everything. And then shortly after that, as we were leaving, they were coming in. Yes. Yeah. And you've described it in the past as a bunch of police officers coming down. Yes. There were several. Yes. Okay. And they were in uniform? Yes. Guns? Yes. And they walked in the area where you were? Yes. They walked straight in that area. Yes. So the gun part of it is also important because they found pellet or the unspent round, I guess, um, which is the same kind of ammunition that the police use. So, but they're trying to pin it on Alan, even though he didn't even have his gun there that day. And the markings, well, we'll get into that when we get to there, where the markings on the gun just you're comparing apples to oranges in your testing, and it's just not accurate. But anyways, let's move on. So, and they walked in the area where you were? Yes, they walked straight in that area. In fact, you encountered as you walked up from down here, I mean, you walked all the way up to the cemetery at some point in time, right? Yes. And you encountered, oh, go ahead, I'm sorry. No, I wasn't saying anything. Okay. I was just answering. And you encountered police all the way up as you were walking up to the cemetery? Yes. Lots of police, correct? There were a few. You are a deer hunter. I know that from because of, yes, is that correct? And there's lots of scavenger type of animals in Carroll County, such as coyotes. Oh, there's coyotes, yes. And buzzards? Yes, turkey buzzards. Objection, judge, outside of direct. Sustained. So he can't talk about the wildlife and stuff that's surrounding and things that are in that area, even though this guy has lived there his whole life and knows that area, has already testified that he is familiar with that area. He can't tell you what kinds of scavengers and things if he knows that what's there. He can't tell you. I guess they're just nope. You can't know that, jury. Sorry. Last question. This is a they say don't ask a question you don't know the answer to. I'm about to do that. I thought the schools were closed on that. Oh, that's the next day. Yes. Okay, got it. Thank you. No other questions. The court says, Ms. Diener says, no other questions, Judge. I'd like to release Pat Brown from the subpoena. The court says, okay. Does anybody from the jury have any questions for Pat or for Mr. Brown? Okay, all right. If counsel would approach, please. So now we have a few, or at least one jury question. So Judge Gull calls a sidebar. The court says, who was your phone provider in 2017? This is a question from the jury. Ms. Diener says yes. And Mr. Baldwin says firm. Phone. Oh, phone. Oh, okay. Approximately how long does it take for the police to get to the spot that the bodies were found in after you found them? Ms. Diener says yes. Baldwin says yeah. Court says how fast was the crime scene secured when the people were told to leave the area? Baldwin says, fine. Court says, how long is your next witness? Ms. Diener says, I will have to ask. I think it's, and another inaudible. I'm just going to highlight all the inaudibles because I think it's ridiculous that there's so many inaudibles. Oh, look, there's more inaudibles. Why is it that certain topics might be maybe excluded from the transcript? Is that a possibility? I don't know. The court says, I think, or I was just thinking we ought to break. Ms. Diener says, I can't speak to how long the witness will be. Court says something that we don't get to know. Mr. Baldwin says, I'm still doing only 3 witnesses, so we're trying. And he also says something that's inaudible. Ms. Diener says something that's inaudible. The court says, okay, sidebar concluded. Well, I'm sure glad that was all cleared up now that we know what the heck is going on because that was so clear. Anywho, all right, let's get to the jury questions for Patrick Brown. These questions were read by Judge Gall to the witness. She says, Mr. Brown, yes. Who was your phone provider in 2017? That's a good question. I do believe it was Verizon. Court says Verizon. Any follow-up, Ms. Diener? I did not hear the answer. He said Verizon. Verizon. Thank you. No follow-up, says Ms. Diener. The court says, okay, Mr. Baldwin. Mr. Baldwin says, you believe it's Verizon. Do you pay in my house? I don't have any idea who are. He says, my wife pays the bill, but so your wife pays the bills. Yes, I do believe it was Verizon though. Okay. Yes. Next question is read by the juror or read by the court, sorry. She says approximately how long did it take for the police to get to the spot that the bodies were found in after you found them? He says, well, honestly, it seems like it takes forever in a situation like that, but I would say maybe 15 minutes at the tops, maybe. I mean, they were already out and about looking and in the area, so it shouldn't have taken that. Oh, he said 5 minutes. Did I say 15? He said 5 minutes. So yeah, it shouldn't have taken that long. It should have been quick because they were there right away. But um, what they taped off and what they believed to be their crime scene, we have yet to know that because, what did how far out did they go from the bodies? And there were trees and things and pools of blood that was that included in their radius. You always want to start bigger with your radius and then go smaller. So how did, I wonder what that approach was. But anyways, so they say 5 minutes the cop showed up. Any follow up, Ms. Diener? The judge says no. I mean, no, sorry. Ms. Diener says no, judge. My brain is going backwards on everything right now. The court says, Mr. Baldwin. Mr. Baldwin says, no, Your Honor, thank you. Last, I think this is the last question. And how fast was the crime scene secured when the people were told to leave the area? I would say they took over pretty quick. Pretty quick. Any follow up? None from the state. Mr. Baldwin? No, Your Honor. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Mr. Brown. You may step down. Okay, thank you, says the witness. The court says, all right, well, ladies and gentlemen, I've been advised by the state that the next witness could be fairly lengthy, and rather than keep you well into the noon hour and having your lunch way late, we'll just go ahead and break a little early, get you a little bit more time. Again, while you're outside of the courtroom, please keep your minds open. Please don't form any opinions or conclusions about anything since you will be in the company of the bailiffs. I cannot permit you to discuss the evidence, so please don't do that. I know we have a couple of activities planned for you today and tomorrow, so please enjoy your time off. You will reconvene here in Carroll Circuit Court Monday at 9. So was this a weekend? Oh, this must have been a Saturday because they have half days on Saturdays. Remember, this jury is sequestered and they are away from their families, their internet, phones, all of it. So they went a 5.5 week work week, I guess, court week, and then they I guess are planning activities for them. I know they were doing like barbecues and stuff at the place where they were staying, things like that. So they have a couple activities planned for the rest of Saturday and Sunday while they're still sequestered. So that's interesting to know. You will reconvene here Monday at 9. Have a safe and peaceful weekend, and we'll see you then. Gentlemen, the bailiff says, all rise. The jury is out of the court at 11:35 a.m. Court says, you may be seated. Anything you need to do outside the presence of the jury? Mr. McLeland says, no, Judge, I don't believe so. I think the state is fine until Monday. The court says, okay, anything, Mr. Rosie? No, Judge. Mr. Baldwin says, no, Your Honor. Court says, okay, those of you in the audience are permitted to leave. Any and media, you may approach into the well of the courtroom for your 15 minutes of public access to publicly accessible documents. Jody, you can go off the record. So these exhibits should be public. They should be available for all of the public, not just the media. But here she was doing such a weird thing where at the end of each day, she would give the jury, only the jury, I'm sorry, not the jury, the media. She would give the media who, only the media that she deemed actual media, not like independent journalists, no YouTubers, none of that were allowed, but only like mainstream legacy type media people were allowed. And they were given 15 minutes to review those exhibits at the end of each day, which is so bizarre because they should be accessible to everybody. And with today's technology, you can do that with a couple clicks, you know? I mean, it's not that difficult, but whatever. Here we are. So, that is episode of, well, I guess State's Case Part 5, and that was Jake Johns and Patrick Brown, both friendly with the Patty family. It's interesting we haven't heard a whole lot about the Williams family yet. I'm wondering if we'll get more. I mean, we've heard from Anna Williams, I'm sorry, Abby's mother, Anna. But we have not heard from anybody else on the Williams side, and everybody here seems to be the German or Patty family. So, um, I don't know. I don't know if the Williams family chose to be less prominent in the investigation or what, but we do know that the the Patties were very I kind of want to say influential in their town. I think people have done like deeper dives on this. I want to do some more research before I talk about it, but um I feel like the Patties are well known, influential within the Delphi community, and I don't believe that the Williams are necessarily. So there's maybe a discrepancy too with the representation that's being given to the families. I'm not really sure, but maybe I'll look into that. If you guys are interested, let me know in the comments below. Please don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, all the good YouTubey things, and I will see you guys in the next one for I believe we have some more law enforcement. I can't remember both of them off the top of my head. I think there's two witnesses, some law enforcement and something else. But I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Bye now.